there's a beautiful view for you over downtown Portland from our Unico US Bancorp tower camera. I am Hannah Olson. Welcome to Afternoon Live. We have such a great show for you today. Our first guest is an Emmy award-winning journalist who's reported on stories all over the world, all while secretly suffering from a lifetime of anxiety and panic attacks. His new book shares an unflinching look at living with anxiety and the search to conquer it. We welcome the author of the book, No Time to Panic, ABC News Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks for traveling all over the country to talk about your book. You've been everywhere.
Well, you guys are my last stop
for
this week, and I'm so happy to be here.
You're ready for some rest. You've been in 5 cities in 5 days.
Yes, but this show and this city right now has the best vibe.
Wow.
You guys have fun.
I'm going to tell everyone that you said that.
It's true.
Okay, I want to talk to you first about the now of the book, because this is 3.5 years in the making, talking about yourself, writing about yourself, and now being on the road, sharing your stories. Is it strange as a journalist to make yourself the subject?
So first, it's totally strange.
It's weird.
And I often go to the wrong seat.
Yes.
Where I go to the seat where the cameras are not pointed because I'm the journalist, and then they're like, no, you're the seat where the cameras are pointing. It was also hard for me, and I'll be completely candid. I was hugely anxious over the summer because of all the publicity and having to reach out to people and pitch myself, which I'm also not used to.
Very strange.
And so at some point this summer, I basically took control of my brain. I'm like, okay, you're super anxious right now, but you've spent the past 3.5 years working on that, so let's do the things we know how to do. So I cut out caffeine, or like 1 cup of coffee or half a cup. I stopped drinking completely, even, you know, 1 cocktail here or there, nothing. I upped my exercise, did some more mindfulness, even brushing my teeth, walking the dogs, and I felt better.
Isn't that amazing, all the tools that you've acquired? You still had to remind yourself, wait a minute, I know how to conquer this.
Exactly. But the best part, you know, the now of it that you mentioned, is all the people who have been sharing their stories with me. And I guess I kind of anticipated that there would be some outpouring, but not at this level, not at this scale.
It's so common, and like you said, you just had no idea how many people were suffering as you were, and you suffered for a couple of decades before you really got to the bottom of what was happening. You described one of your first instances of panic in college defending your thesis. That's just how far back it goes for you.
Yeah, over 23 years, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I thought I was molting into a werewolf or something. I felt like there were feral cats at my neck. My heart was about to pump out of my chest. I couldn't breathe. I'd forgotten how to swallow. And, you know, I was a kid who'd been in therapy since 12, right? My father was killed in a plane crash when I was 12. And so my mom put me in therapy. And you'd think that someone like me would have the awareness to know what was happening. But it took 14 years of panic attacks for me to actually even know that I'd had a panic attack.
Right, that word panic wasn't really even in your vocabulary, even with all that therapy.
Exactly. And so that's what's so shocking about panic. People don't really know what it is, but it's that heart feeling like it's gonna burst out of your chest, shortness of breath, shaking, trembling, sweating, derealization, feelings like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
40%, Hannah, of patients who are admitted to the ER complaining of chest pains are having a panic attack.
It's incredible.
Yeah, the symptoms so closely mimic an actual heart attack.
And even doctors can't tell when a patient is presenting in front of them what the difference is until they really get in there and run the tests.
Exactly.
We've known folks here who've suffered from that as well. I want you to tell me more about your dad. That was such a major loss in your life. I want you to tell me about him and what he was like from what you remember.
I mean, he died when he was 42, and he was incredibly athletic and lithe and fit, and we had a lot of fun together. And I was his sidekick.
Yeah.
I mean, wherever he went when he wasn't working, I was there. And it was a pretty brutal shock when I learned that he was gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's the kind of thing you carry around everywhere with you your whole life. And I guarantee you that everybody watching right now has a trauma like that we carry around. And the question is, how deeply do we bury it? And is there a way to excavate it to make it less painful? Even though the memories stay, how do we get that pain out of us?
And grief is just part of our human experience. You talk about toward the end of the book that being happy all the time isn't the goal. It's the human experience, that everyone has some sort of trauma, whether or not we share it with everyone else, but we've all been through something. You have to acknowledge it.
First of all, thank you for actually reading the book, and that shows that you did. Yeah, we are not designed to be content. The wellness world tells you you have to find your baseline zen, your contentment, your happiness. No, humans are designed, Homo sapiens are designed to survive and to procreate. And if you do feel happiness or contentment, you should pat yourself on the back because you've achieved that. It's not something that's owed to you.
Right.
So it actually made me feel better. I was like, oh, it's okay to be anxious, you know, and if I feel happiness and contentment and enjoy my kids, that's a bonus. I earned that.
It's supposed to be this way. You have several turning points in the book and in your life, and January of 2020 was a moment when you really realized, reporting on the Kobe Bryant crash, you suffered a panic, you made a mistake on the air, and that really changed the course of the last several years of your life. Did you ever imagine that something like that in your workplace would be a catalyst to where you are now?
You know, I'd had hundreds of on-air panic attacks before January 26, 2020, when I made that catastrophic mistake. And I never made a mistake on air. Somehow the brain kicked into gear, despite the fact that I was sweating through my clothes and shaking and trembling and could barely see the camera. But somehow my brain always worked. And in that instance, it didn't. And so for a while, my wife and I had been talking about me getting out of the business because I had so much anticipatory anxiety about going live that I had magical underwear, lucky underwear in rotation. I would smoke a cigarette before air thinking that it would give me some weird supernatural powers. I did push-ups, calisthenics. I was taking Xanax at some point, and none of it worked. And so my wife and I said, okay, after the Kobe Bryant catastrophe, either figure this out or I leave the TV news business. The figuring out part ended up lasting 3.5 years, and eventually, much later, turned into this book. I didn't know it was going to be a book. I just wanted to fix me. And it was only later that I learned how many other people are suffering just as I was, in secret and in silence.
You went on a trip to Alaska and basically had a near-death experience hiking up a mountain, and you talked about when you came back, you were still ruminating more on the work consequences and sort of the social judgment of that situation, more than almost dying on a mountain, which kind of puts into perspective this fear of social judgment and how it is so real, and it feels like, especially in a moment of panic, that it could be deadly for us.
That's exactly right. So I have a very high threshold for physical fear and danger. And so I almost, I got stuck in a snowdrift that was higher than I was in Denali and without cell phone coverage, and it was very scary, and I thought I was drowning in this white quicksand of snow, but I made it out. And so, like, I'm comfortable with these physical dangers, but it's the social dangers that we are actually designed as a species to be afraid of. And we, you know, evolved to cooperate with other humans. And so in our brains, we actually think of social judgment as being as dangerous as physical danger, as a rock falling on us or being eaten by a lion, which is why we have these visceral reactions to it, like panic attacks. And in fact, social rejection, that feeling, is registered in your brain as physical pain, no different than being poked with a needle.
That makes me feel better for sometimes my social anxiety, that I'm not alone and everybody feels this, which, by the way, talking about near death on a mountain in Alaska, not to mention the war zones that you've been to and being detained by secret police in Venezuela, and none of those things really registered to you as that fear of the social stuff, which, you know, I think we can all relate to.
Yeah. It's interesting that we are so primed for social fears, and that was one of the recalibrations I had in my brain. I always thought we weren't supposed to care what people think about us, but evolutionary science says we should, because we evolved again to be these networked species. We need other humans for almost every aspect of our life, and if we are rejected by them and banished, we could die. So again, it made me think, okay, I'm not some weird genetic kink. I'm normal.
Yes.
I'm part of this balanced human behavior, which seems really painful sometimes, but is actually normal.
It serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Don't move. We're going to keep you here. We're going to take a quick break. The book, again, is No Time to Panic. Much more with Matt Gutman when we come back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Afternoon Live. We're back with the author of No Time to Panic, Emmy Award-winning reporter, best-selling author, ABC's Matt Gutman. We have a couple more minutes with you. I'm so excited. So let's talk about when you decided to reach out for help and find some type of support group that related to panic, and you found basically nothing.
Well, the first thing that happened was I had a terrible panic attack. It was my last full-on, like, sweating through my underpants panic attack on air for World News Tonight. And I boarded this plane. It was a Southwest flight. I chose who I got to sit next to because she seemed like a nice person. And we started talking, and I shared. I like spilled my guts about panic, something I'd been keeping secret for 20 years. And it felt so good.
Yeah.
And she told me that she had had panic, and her daughter suffers panic. And I realized how many people there are. I also realized how good it felt to talk about it. So I started searching for a support group, a panic attack support group. And I couldn't find any. And I looked in Los Angeles, I looked in California, and it turned out there were only 3 nationally that were operating and taking people in. There's 64,000 AA groups, which are important. But it felt like panickers were under-supported, under-recognized. And at that point, I realized, okay, I need to write a book about this. There is a constituency here that's bigger than just me, and maybe I can help people.
I have to write a book, right? You didn't even have a choice at that point. You were just going down the path full throttle. Let's talk about fun stuff. Tell me about your family, about your kiddos, about your gorgeous wife, and how many animals do you have?
We have, well, 3 animals, 2 dogs and a cat. They're all rescues. The 2 dogs are from the actual pound, and they are unbelievable creatures. Look, they get along very nicely.
That's pretty impressive.
The cat actually rules the roost. Everybody's afraid of Rocky the cat.
Yeah, okay.
My wife is a singer and a performer and an early childhood expert. And she is wonderful and massively supportive. And like when I go on the road, people are like, isn't your wife so worried about you? We've been together for 18 years.
She's like, whatever.
When you come back and you go shopping and pick up the really snappy cucumbers, the snappy ones, I'm like, I'm going to Ukraine. She's like, great. Bring back those cucumbers. She's so cool.
And how old are your kiddos now?
You see Ben, who's now 9, Libby is 15, and they're just good kids. And you know, like, we are hands-off in terms of I don't helicopter on them about their grades or what they do.
It's hard not to, so that's good.
But I don't want them, I need them to be good kids. The only thing I care about is they're nice, decent human beings.
100%.
And that's where I put the emphasis in our family. And so I pride myself on them being just like sweet kids. They're, you know, they don't do anything special. We don't push them. They're just nice. They're good people.
But you must also keep the door open, too, for communication in terms of what they're feeling. If they have any anxieties, and you know so much more now than you probably did as a youngster to be able to guide them through that stuff.
There's a lot of talk, Hannah, about, you know, our feelings in our family. We learn to use our words to talk about anxiety and feeling and that not nice feeling you feel inside. And my son says, I feel bad for I feel sad for no reason. You know, like, yeah, he's really good at articulating it. And you know, you got to be open about it, especially
really cool.
now.
Yes.
And that's one of the key things is to have early intervention about mental health. So people like me don't go into their mid-30s not knowing what this thing that keeps punching them in the face is, and it was for me a panic attack.
Something that's not built into school curriculum and things like that, but it's something that we encounter every single day.
Exactly.
Tell me about the pancakes. I have so many questions.
Really, the pancakes? Everybody's
obsessed. Pancakes are a hot topic around here. Well, everyone's jealous of your griddle, so we'll have to
get
some more details later.
Yeah, it's I think it's a 24-inch griddle, so it can make a lot of pancakes. I like the chocolate chip. I use the non-grain stuffs a lot, so like cassava powder and almond powder.
Cool.
And sometimes I just do the really unhealthy kind, which the kids like the best, of course, with chocolate chips.
Of course they do, yes.
But then it's not really a healthy breakfast. It's sort of like dessert for breakfast.
Yeah.
But
is that a tradition when you're home? I mean, you're on the road a ton, so is that nice to just decompress, make a whole ton of pancakes, and sit down for a while?
You know what's heartbreaking, Hannah? My daughter's now a full-on teenager, and she doesn't always want the pancakes.
Oh, no.
So I like chase her around the house with food. I'm like, here's fried eggs. Here's some. Please eat something. You know?
The teenage years. We have awesome photos. We've rated your Instagram.
Oh,
you have
man.
a then
what
and
else do we
now
have
with
there?
your cousins.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so sweet. So this is then. How many years ago is this?
That's probably 35 years ago. 35 years ago, I would say.
And y'all did the recreation, which is adorable.
Yeah, that's funny. In the same room, the same house. We have this house in Vermont that we've been going to. The family's been going to for 55 years. My wife doesn't think so because it's in the middle of the woods. The plumbing is bad. There are bugs
Well,
everywhere.
there's that.
Critters. So it's not her favorite thing.
It's nice for Instagram, though.
I love it. So the kids who grew up there, like me, I'm like, I just love being in the woods in the wild. And she's like,
It's just, yeah, it's just normal. Okay, did you just recently meet Neil deGrasse Tyson, and how was that?
So we released our books on the same day.
Cool.
And we're in the green room with Kelly and Mark, and we hit it off. We talked about the science of evolution of anxiety.
There you go.
And so he dug that.
He's a good chatter,
Yeah,
too. I
we
mean,
geeked out
between
on
the
that.
two of you, I feel like you could go for hours.
It was amazing. It was really fun. He's great.
Okay,
lovely
and we
guy.
have to talk about Sean Penn, because you guys have
Okay.
a really cool friendship that
Yeah.
goes back 20 years now.
Yeah, I met Sean in Iraq in 2003, and we're sitting having breakfast at this out of the loop hotel, and suddenly my colleague and I are like, "Holy crap! Is that Sean Penn?"
How
And-
bizarre.
He was doing an article for the San Francisco Chronicle, and he was just so down to earth and cool. And we sat there having thick Turkish coffee, Arabic coffee for hours and chatting, and he's just an amazing person. And then we met again in Haiti. He had started this nonprofit there, and I ran into him and then ended up doing a bunch of stories about him and his work there. And he's done stuff in Venezuela where I was held captive, and we've just been in each other's orbit for so many
Yeah.
years now. And he's just like a real gem. And he's got an amazing documentary about Ukraine that just came out.
Yes.
He was with President Zelensky as the war broke out.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The book again is No Time to Panic by Matt Gutman. Thank you again.
Thank you,
It was a
Hannah.
pleasure. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.